All right, let's dive into a real ancient mystery, a legal and philosophical puzzle that seriously challenged some of history's greatest minds. We're talking about the case of improper intent.
So let me just start with a pretty wild question. Can a single wrong thought, a private intention that nobody else can even see, totally invalidate a public, sacred act? It feels like a modern question, right? But it was actually at the very heart of a huge debate thousands of years ago.
And in the ancient temple in Jerusalem, this wasn't just some hypothetical. Oh no, the stakes were incredibly high. A priest's momentary, private thought during a sacrifice could literally mean the difference between divine acceptance and complete rejection.
Now, the key term we have to get our heads around here is mahshavah, or improper intent. This isn't just your mind wandering. We're talking about a very specific kind of deviating thought. For instance, a priest is offering a meal sacrifice, but in his head, he's thinking about an animal sacrifice. It's this precise mental state that creates the entire puzzle we're about to unpack.
Okay, so this brings us to the core mystery. We're going to look at a totally baffling contradiction from one of the most brilliant sages of the era, and this is what sets the stage for the entire debate. So here's the conflict. The great sage Rabbi Shimon seems to say two completely opposite things. On the one hand, he says an offering is valid if a priest is thinking of a different type of offering. But then on the other hand, he says it's invalid if he's thinking of a different purpose. Now, at first glance, those sound almost identical. So how can both possibly be true? Well, this apparent contradiction sparked an incredible intellectual battle among the sages who came after him. Their mission, if you will, was to find a single, unifying theory that could explain Rabbi Shimon's logic and make both of his rulings perfectly consistent. So let's meet our first contender. This is Rava, an absolute giant of Talmudic thought, who came up with this brilliant and really elegant solution based on the idea of categories. Rava bases his entire argument on a single verse from Leviticus. He reads this line not just as a rule, but as a hidden clue to the underlying structure of the entire sacrificial system. So here's Rava's logic. He argues that the phrase one law groups all the different kinds of meal offerings, pan-fried, deep-fried, baked, you name it, into one big family. So thinking of a different meal offering is like thinking of a cousin. You're still in the family, so it's all good. But, and this is the key, there's no verse that says one law for meal offerings and animal offerings. They're in completely different categories. So thinking of an animal offering during a meal offering, that's an out-of-bounds thought that invalidates the whole thing. It's a really clean, logical system. But Rava's elegant theory wasn't the only solution on the table. Our next contender, Rav Ashi, came along and built a completely different model to solve the puzzle. Rav Ashi just completely ignores Rava's idea of these biblical categories. He says the key isn't the type of offering you're thinking about, but the specific object your thought is actually directed at. This is a much more subtle and fascinating distinction. Okay, here's how Rav Ashi's theory works in practice. If the priest thinks, I'm performing this ritual for the sake of a deep pan, Rav Ashi says that's totally fine. Why? Well, because you can't sacrifice a pan. The thought is basically irrelevant to the sacred act itself. But if the thought is, I'm doing this for a deep pan meal offering, well, now the intent is aimed squarely at the offering itself. And that's a direct mental interference with the ritual, and it invalidates it. See the difference? So, now we have two powerful theories on the table. But in the world of Talmudic debate, no theory gets a free pass. It's time for the knockout round, where each idea is tested against the toughest possible cases. And here's where things get really tough. A critic points out to Rava that there's another verse that says one law for the sin offering. So by his own logic, all sin offerings should be interchangeable. But we know from other laws that they're just not. His system breaks. And Rav Ashi faces a similar problem. What if a priest thinks of a mixed offering while performing a dry one? That thought is clearly about the offering, not the vessel. But Rabbi Shimon rules it valid. So Rav Ashi's theory can't explain why. So what does this all mean? It means that both Rava and Rav Ashi came up with these brilliant systematic solutions, but when they were pushed to their logical extremes, neither one could perfectly account for every single one of Rabbi Shimon's rulings. The contradiction held. The mystery remained unsolved. So where does this all leave us after this intense intellectual showdown? What is the final verdict on the case of improper intent? This is the question that's just hanging in the air, right? If the best and brightest minds couldn't crack the code, what was really going on in Rabbi Shimon's head? What was the secret logic that only he understood? And the Talmud itself provides the most profound answer of all. When another sage tries one last time to solve the puzzle, he's met with this humbling response. Have we ascertained the depth of the opinion of Rabbi Shimon? Wow. It's this powerful admission, a recognition that some minds are just so deep, they might actually be beyond our complete understanding.
And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. This isn't a story about failure. The fact that the debate ends without a simple, neat answer isn't a flaw. It's a testament to the incredible depth and complexity of the original problem of mind, matter, and ritual.
Ultimately, this whole intellectual journey forces us to ask a fundamental question about learning itself. Is the goal of a really rigorous debate always to arrive at a final, closed answer? Or is it sometimes to peel back the layers of complexity, to sharpen our thinking, and to deepen the very question we started with? That's the provocative thought at the heart of this ancient case.